Hello there. Welcome back to Hyperdrive Minds podcast, episode 27. Today we've got Scott Jones. He's the VP of product at Realeyes, a vision AI platform. You're going to want to hear this because what they're doing is incredible. From a facial analysis, identity validation, and emotion and attention detection technology. It's about to be implemented everywhere, I think. But he's got an awesome background, awesome personality too. He's a local Raleigh. He's actually in Chapel Hill, but he's local to me. We met at a local tech startup week here in Durham. So yeah, y'all check it out. Welcome to Hyperdrive Minds podcast. Scott Jones, how are you, sir?
Great. Thank you for having me. And I really got to up the lighting in here. You're shaming me implicitly with your cool setup.
Oh yeah, I got the Star Wars museum in here. Yeah, it's a real backdrop. It's not a picture. It's not
Yeah, that's
AI, not a green screen.
We have to prove it. Go back there and grab something,
Yeah, let me move out of the way. There's even stuff on the floor there. I got a big Star Destroyer, but
Super cool.
can't really see it.
I don't know if I told you, my wife is a Lego-preneur. She's got a Lego resale business out of our house. So Star Wars is a huge theme of valuable Lego gear. So we're deep in it too. Not like you though.
She'd be upset with me. I think my Star Destroyer is like a knockoff brand and it came already assembled. It's like a Facebook marketplace find. If you got a real Lego version of a Star Destroyer that size, it'd probably be worth $1,000 or more.
Star Destroyer, is that like from the original, like the long shot under the kind of belly of this thing where the slow?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I want to get into those Lego kits where it's like, all right, that's $2,000, but look at how big it is.
Yeah, where are you gonna put it?
You need a special room. Yeah, you have the place for it. That's great.
Yeah, this is a room attached to my garage. So this is like where I spend way too much time, man. It's my cave. I got like 5 screens in here. Star Wars museum. I got a treadmill in here, exercise in here.
We're mirroring each other. Before we hopped on here, I showed you under desk treadmill, music studio. I'm in the Frog, the finished room over garage. So same deal.
Great minds think alike, I guess, right?
Or it's like your family says, you can't have that stuff in our house.
You got to keep that up there with you. But yeah, thanks for coming on, man. For the folks who don't know how we got connected, we met at the Raleigh Tech Startup Week, and we were chatting in the Hoova app, the app they use to kind of coordinate the whole thing and the schedule. And I was reaching out to some folks. We didn't meet there, but we got to chatting. We scheduled a 15-minute phone call for later in the week, and that 15 minutes turned into an hour and a half, like real fast.
Yeah, we kind of fell in love,
Yeah, we did.
That Hoova app story is really funny. We were in the same building on opposing floors, and we kind of did one of these. And I was like,
Oh, yeah.
just passing in the elevator. I didn't see you, but so glad we were able to make it work.
Yeah, it was a fun combo. And now we're here, man. So, yeah, give us a quick background story for you.
The origin story. Yeah, the real quick version that paints a picture of who I am. I would go to college to start. I would say I studied economics and film and was a sort of aspiring musician as well. So very active on those things in college. Came out of it not wanting to make movies. That had been my intention from like birth. I want to be a director. I didn't like working with my classmates. So I was like, no, I don't think I'm going to do that. Didn't know what to do, but was ultimately an analyst for several years out of college, just kind of following the intellectual curiosity with that. That took me to management consulting, economic consulting in the context of higher education and social policy. My musical aspirations, I was in Chicago from college and a couple years out. My music aspirations led me to New York to join a band. There, I joined a nonprofit healthcare provider. Really fascinating, $1 billion operation, doing 20,000 in-home visits a day in the 5 boroughs, facilitated by about 3,000 nurses and therapists, 150-year-old organization. Pretty fascinating place to be an internal sort of management consultant while playing music in New York. Ultimately had an opportunity in LA with that band that led me to move there. Joined an internet yellow pages company, met my wife at work too. This philosophy of mine of not having a plan and just kind of following where the universe takes me continued. At this internet yellow pages company, got really deep into SQL as an autodidact. I joined the search engine marketing team. I was writing code that was governing spend on the order of $3 to $4 million a month with the major search engines, and just kind of generally getting my fingers into technical stuff. And one day they said, "Hey, Scott, you should be a product manager." I didn't know what that meant. This is like 2010, but it sounded cool. It's like, I don't, okay, yeah, let's do it. And it was ultimately my destiny. So again, the universe just kind of, depending on your belief systems, saying, "Hey, take my hand, Scott. Where can you continue this ride?" I jumped into the deep end of product. I was given ownership of a performance ad product at this internet yellow pages company. It was a book of business around $150 million, 55,000 small business customers, things like Chicago lawyers, Orlando dentists, Denver plumbers, etc. And I worked with a data science team. So went from 0 to 100 miles an hour of product management. Worked with a data science team on this optimization engine of how do I optimize for on behalf of each of these 55,000 small business customers. I have a marginal dollar to spend to get them an incremental or hit a target of phone call and email leads. Do I do it on search, network partners, or organic traffic? So worked with them on all those optimizations. I worked with our teams on our API integrations with the search engines, with like esoteric business rules to take selling ad product for the phone book and being able to say, "Cool, you bought a listing for Chicago dentists. How the heck do I turn that into search engine marketing campaigns programmatically?" And all the different variations of how you might do that. So I'll just say, really fascinating world to cut my teeth and learn. That led me into ad tech, martech, Internet of Things. Generally being acknowledged as a 0 to 1 person, I established this competency of being able to kind of outmaneuver my peers in unlocking value in scrappy fashion with scarce resources, such that leadership kept saying, "Give that to Scott, give that to Scott." And that led to this now more than 10 years of being sought as a 0 to 1 person, where I've just built up this toolkit frameworks, kind of more so a philosophy of how to navigate the ambiguity of, we're here, we want to be there. We don't know how to do it. Scott, can you lead us through that? And that's what I've been doing. Hardware companies like Hewlett Packard Enterprise, Lenovo, scrappy startups like a marketplace for hiring marketers, a talent marketplace built by friends of mine from college. They'd reached $55 million ARR in 2 years using no and low code tools. And they hit me up to say, "We want to become a technology company. Can you help us do that?" Same deal, just cool. Well, I don't know. I've never done that before, but I know how to navigate ambiguity. Sure, let's figure that out. And it ultimately led to me to the most fascinating role of my career, leading a platform business from 0 to 1 at a pioneering European computer vision company, where I am product, sales, marketing, business development, partnerships, building this business from the ground up pretty much myself. Doing crazy stuff globally, all from this room above my garage in Chapel Hill. That was probably longer an answer than you were expecting.
You are an army of one over there, and you're like a lone wolf in the U.S., right? Everybody else is in Europe.
That's right. For my business unit, I am completely isolated. That made it sound scary. I am alone. Yeah, we have an ad testing business. It's been around for more than a decade. We have a sales team in New York supporting that. Yeah. So humble
Very
group.
cool. Yeah, and you've got a background in music. I guess you play drums, piano. You even produced a music festival while you were in college. So how does that creative side influence your approach to like product management in the tech world?
I don't know how quickly you want to get into kind of my woo-woo belief systems, but we can go there. We can go there. My whole journey has been, I think it's kind of a tendency for all of us to kind of be compartmentalized. I think a lot of people kind of wake up in their adulthood and be like, "I've been play acting. I am this person at work. I am this person with my friends." Like all these masks we wear and how we put
Oh, yeah.
ourselves in these little boxes. And I was certainly doing that too. The realization for me, I will not belabor this audience with my full journey into becoming a butterfly or whatever, but I went through kind of a dark period in my adolescence. I guess who didn't? And it took me into my 20s to kind of open up and start to discover who I really am and break down these boxes we're describing, such that where I'm at now, my belief system is very much tied to spirituality and kind of a viewpoint of what is the nature of reality. I don't subscribe to it being these solid objects we see. I don't think that's it. I think there are energetic layers behind it. And my whole journey has been to sort of channel the real me from behind the scenes into this world. And this is getting real woo-woo the way I'm saying it, but such that I just kind of ride the wave of my feeling feelings, and I feel it in my chakras, to be honest. I feel like I can tell when I'm speaking my truth, living my truth, whatever, through these feelings, and I just follow that. So I don't, like, right now, I'm not choosing my words. I'm not consciously saying I want to say this message this way to Blake, but rather just kind of riding the wave. And that's how I try to live every waking moment, whether I'm playing drums with a band or by myself working on something. I'm just like, oh, what happens if? Oh, that's cool. I'm an audience member. I don't know what's going to happen next. Same deal at a piano, same deal on a sales call with a customer. I just try to ride this wave, kind of playing ping pong with the universe and the people in front of me as sort of intermediaries with that, where I don't necessarily have a plan. I'm not trying to control. I just follow my feelings and ride the flow. The better way to articulate this, I think, for Westerners is this notion of flow state. I found that we've all had the ephemeral moments. I knew exactly what to say. I was hilarious. I'm never funny. Or God, I was playing sports out of my mind. I'm never that good, but I was kicking everyone's butt. The idea that doesn't have to be ephemeral. Like you can actually live in that place all the time once you realize where it comes from. So that's how I approach it. And another aspect of kind of the compartmentalization angle, what I found is the creativity in music. It's all the same muscle. So by virtue of just honoring that, like going deeper into what kind of ideas can I find on the fly? Like I'm really into improvised music. So getting a group together and just creating, building up that muscle brings itself anywhere you go, any sort of creative endeavor where you constantly are used to kind of turning the faucet on and letting the flow come out without judgment, knowing it's not all going to be great. Turn the sink on, there's going to be brown water, but then it clears up. Just getting used to doing that and you keep doing it. Again, you have that flow available to you all the time.
I just bought this new tea called Wisdom Tea. It's like got a mixture of yerba mate with some mushrooms in there with some nootropics. And I'm like, oh, what's this going to do? It's got a little caffeine. I think combine that with a little nicotine and boom, you're there.
You're hyped
You
up.
know, yeah, you're hyped up. When you were talking, though, about energetic layers and all that stuff, it made me think of the podcast with Thomas Campbell. He was on Joe Rogan, and he's got the simulation theory, right? He thinks we're all like brains inside of a computer and we're all little virtual machines getting a data feed. Have you heard that before?
I have. I think my mental model of reality maps to that. It's really agnostic. I'll just describe it to you. I've heard one other person on Earth describe this analogy I'm about to use, so I'm not going to credit him because I think I came up with it first. But
Okay.
I don't think it's unique to me. I'm just kidding. Conceptualize humans as smartphones. So we have locally on the device, we have pretty compelling compute. We've got good storage. We've got some cool apps we can run. We also have radios, and most of us have our radios turned off, or we're not able to listen to the signal because all of this stuff running on board has built up so much ownership of our kind of awareness, and it's constantly chattering. For most of us, that manifests as in the West as fear, anxiety, doubt, worry, where you have a book I read, The Untethered Soul, the author calls it the noisy neighbor or the noisy roommate in your head. We just assume that's normal. Kind of like before I embraced being gluten-free and vegetarian, I just assumed, oh, it's normal. Every time I eat, I feel bloated and disgusting. It's like we just assume every time we go about our day, it's normal to have, oh, crap, that happened to me. I'm worried about what's going to happen. Let me now energize, just projecting what could possibly go wrong and take me out of the moment. When we're doing that constantly, we can't perceive the signal of the radios. So the idea agnostic, what is the radio talking to? The model for phones, we say the cloud. Here, it could be cosmic consciousness. It could be God. It could be the simulation. It could be what, I don't care what you need to call it, but just the idea that is available to us through the process of meditation for me, other practices like that, where you realize you are not the chatter. In fact, you are the witness of the chatter kind of in the background by virtue of getting in touch with that feeling and realization that you are not your thoughts. And in fact, you don't have to be a victim of them. You can now be aware of them and choose not to engage. You could say, oh yeah, that worry. Yes, I'm about to send an email that reminds me of a pattern I had when I sent a similar email to a boss years ago and he ripped my head off. A while ago, that would lead me down a rabbit hole of, oh God. Now it's just like, yep, I remember that. Bye. Not my reality anymore. Just move on. And the idea that when we get rid of the ownership of our lives from that chatter, you open up what I was describing before, this kind of subtle language of intuition that you couldn't perceive before because you had so much noise. The language is very subtle. It's like feelings. It's like the soft inner voice of like what to say, what to do. It's these little nudges, like call Blake or think of Blake. And then Blake, all that shit where we're like, sorry for cursing. It's all that
It's allowed.
where we say, oh, it's synchronicity or just random coincidence or whatever. Like, no, actually, I would argue it's not. There's this whole world where the whole network of information behind the scenes here trying to help us. But we're usually so inundated with what is out there, what's a problem, what's wrong with me, whatever, that we can't perceive it. So
Yeah.
I agree with him. Yes. It's a simulation, it's God, it's cosmic consciousness, whatever you want it to be.
Yeah, he's talking about the logical brain always takes over and tries to make sense of everything. And the intuitive side, when you meditate, the data feed you're getting, the information, you have to quiet all that logical brain out. And I have so much trouble when I try to meditate. I get like 10 minutes in, I get a thought and I'm like, oh man, I better do that now. And I just stop and like go write some stuff down or put something on the calendar or just go ahead and knock out like a 30-minute project. Cause I'm like, if I don't do it now, I'm just going to forget, it's like a dream.
Yeah.
You're going to wake up and forget it.
You do that from like your cushion you're on. You're like, well, actually, let me go.
Yeah, that's interesting, man. I feel like we could talk about that for
It's never ending. Yeah, it's a never ending rabbit hole. The deeper you get, you realize, as with anything, the deeper you get, you realize, wow, I haven't gotten anywhere. There's so much more depth.
For sure. So you built like a product department from the ground up at that company you're talking about, market or hire. What's the most crucial piece of advice you'd give someone that might be in a similar position at a startup or something that has to build out a product team?
Yeah, in that case, the philosophy I used, it wasn't all directed by me. It was in partnership with the CEO and the idea of and some of the other co-founders. The idea of looking for, I guess, when the notion of a scrappy startup, do you need someone who does this particular role, this particular position really well? But if suddenly a challenge comes up and it's like, well, I need a center. So I was looking for people who over-index on stuff like me, more general entrepreneurial hustle. You don't need to be told what to do. It's not, well, what's the playbook? It's very linear. I do this, then that, then that. It's more, I don't know. This is where we're at. This is where we want to be. I can help coach you and guide you based on my experiences, but I don't want to do it for you. I'm happy. I just want to give you kind of this sandbox for you to achieve stuff and unlock value and learn and grow. So looking for people where that's exciting and they can demonstrate a competency that they wouldn't just flip over and die in such a world. But no, I've done stuff like that before. I've gone 0 to 1. I've built things from scratch. I've navigated the innovation life cycle. And yes, I know it's not always a win and you lose, but you learn something. It's like getting all of that philosophy out of it. That's where I was coming from. And I got very, very fortunate to, it's very interesting. That role, I ended up hiring two people from MIT, which I'd never even done before. But it was just fascinating. In there, I learned a lot about MIT and the kind of caliber of person who can survive that undergraduate program. So those are the learnings that came from hiring and building out that department.
I think the best leaders, they always like to hire people that they feel like are much smarter than they are, right? As opposed to some managers, I feel like they try to avoid that because they're getting territorial over their realm or whatever. They don't want anybody to kind of overshadow what they're doing. I don't really agree with that approach. I'd rather be surrounded with people who know a lot more than me to tell me what to do.
Yeah, that's kind of I love that philosophy. It didn't come to bear with the scope of what you asked me about, but certainly for other roles I've hired for, or just in general, like if you think about the philosophy of building your own business, is exactly what you said. Like as a sort of entrepreneurial CEO founder type, you have to be comfortable wearing various hats. And then one day you reach a level, you're like, no, this hat doesn't fit anymore. We're at a stage, I don't need to wear this. Let me get a pro. And you've learned so much by virtue of wearing that hat to this point that you can like bring someone in to interview for that role and coming from the perspective of I've gone this far, kind of filling in that gap. I know some stuff. So to your point, exactly right. We're at this stage. This is where we want to go. What would you do? Assuming I hired you, like, how would you do this? And you would know enough to be like, well, they're full of shit. That wouldn't work. Or, wow, I've never thought of that. Tell me more about that. You've done that before? That's super cool. Let me pull that thread. And either I've now up-leveled myself, like, oh, there's a world of possibilities there, but more likely, I really believe this person and they can totally up-level us and I'm going to learn from them. I think that's exactly where you want to be. Not like I am the man and I need people who are less than me so they can support me and I get taller. Like that's not going to work. recipe for failure.
What led you to join the company you're at now, Realeyes?
The role at marketer hire was taking a natural turn. The business had hit a kind of a roadblock with the growth curve, and the founding team was going in a different direction. And reorgs and such were very much in play, such that the writing was very clear on the wall, like, all right, let's look for other opportunities. So that was summer of 2022. The job market was so much different then than it is today. So
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I did what you can't do today. I had a bunch of alerts and I went real deep in applying to literally anything that was relevant across like Glassdoor and LinkedIn. It led to some really fascinating opportunities. And I ended up having 5 offers by the end of that summer. Realize was one of them. It was the scariest, I'd say, like the least certain, where you have like the serious imposter syndrome voice being like, wait, I'm going to be selling. I'm going to be like to enterprise class customers and startups. I'm going to be like owning all of this stuff kind of as this army of one lone wolf, pick your analogy. I've never done that before. And the imposter syndrome creeping up, like, maybe you shouldn't. That's pretty scary. Maybe take something that's more of a sure thing, a little more comfortable,
Right.
a little more predictable. But I would argue the voice of reason ultimately won. I had to make my wife comfortable about it. But yeah, this idea of now I'm very much fear driven, like, oh, that's scary. I want to do it. And
Yeah.
also,
Do what you're afraid of.
yeah, because how else do you turn your coal into diamond? You need pressure. So
Yeah.
that's how I live kind of in every aspect of my interests and pursuits. And it was the natural, again, the universe is this natural convergence of everything I'd been doing where I was unique and valuable to them. And on the flip side, how else can I learn and grow? And the past 2 years have definitely turned a lot of me into shiny diamond in ways I never could have imagined. And it was the natural convergence of everything I'd been doing. So like 0 to 1 innovation, this entrepreneurial mindset internal to companies where it's, what's the cheapest way I can prove that? What's the fastest path to validate with the least resource expenditure? Platform strategy. Like they'd interviewed a bunch of people. They weren't just looking at me. They interviewed me for about 2.5 months and had many candidates that they were checking out. And the differentiator for me, amongst others, was having a philosophy of platforms where I've done the same at Hewlett Packard Enterprise and Lenovo. The whole team is facilitating and like supplying the lowest level capabilities that could do many things, not getting specialized right away. Like I'm building something for the insurance vertical. More so, I'm building something that are like abstract reusable parts that could be these Lego blocks could come together to solve problems in a variety of verticals and then get customers in to start doing things, kind of look over their shoulder, assist them a bit and be like, oh, I see what you did for the insurance vertical. That's pretty cool. Thanks. I'm going to productize that. Now I've got a strategy to go vertical specific, but you don't do that right away. It's all that sort of stuff that a lot of people weren't familiar with. And also I've been working on AI, not as the product, but it's been under the hood since my first role at that Internet Yellow Pages company. So like, at this point, 16 years straight of working at the intersection of leading edge technologies, artificial intelligence, and innovation. So it was all just very much, again, the universe kind of being like, hey, Scott, follow me.
Yeah. Yeah, well, good thing you chased the fear instead of taking the safe road, because yeah, you've done some incredible things there, and I think that's some advice that I should have followed early in my life, right? That instead of doing what was comfortable and the easier path, I should have said, "Wow, that scares the hell out of me. Let me go do that." That's the only way to really grow, right?
I definitely was not like this forever. Was definitely early on the guy hiding in the shadows, being like, well,
Yeah.
that's scary. I don't want to do that. Yeah.
For sure. Well, you mentioned the job market and you had 5 offers. Like that's wow, it's hard to come by these days, right? And the job market is it's kind of brutal, man, because we met at this tech startup week and I had out of like the 4 meetings that I had, you were number 5. You were actually the only one. You were the only one that was employed. Everybody else I found out after meeting them, they were like, well, actually I'm not there anymore. And I want to talk to you because I'm actually looking for a job. And it was like 4 in a row. I was like, man, this job market is cooked, dude. It's cooked.
I share your observation. I was invited by some former colleagues to hang out with their former colleagues. So, like the circle of former colleagues getting to know each other. And we went to this awesome place in Durham, M Sushi. There were Six of us at the table, I think. Two of them were founders of their own UX consultancy. And you just mentioned me. And then I think there were seven at the table. So my numbers are more, but everyone else at the table unemployed, looking for their next thing.
Yeah.
So like say like Annick data, 4 out of 7 casually at a restaurant meeting up. Those odds seem to ring true. And they were all saying the same stuff I'm hearing everywhere else. Ghosting, applying at large, at volume to anything you can find, trying to play the networking game, hearing best practices, you must network, hearing networking doesn't work, hearing all this conflicting stuff as it is at every layer of our culture these days, where it's like this perspective, that perspective, they're complete in opposition. Which one's true? I don't know. And the job market's very similar, where a lot of people are hurting, oversupply of candidates, undersupply of roles. It's like, how creative can you be to disrupt everyone trying to go through the same pathways? Like, how do you get around that? That's kind of the game right now until this system burns down and then we can start over.
Yeah.
Sounds a
Till
lot like our
AI does
government.
it all,
Yeah,
right?
crazy. Yeah. Wait,
Yeah, I
what
have a
did you
side
say?
business. It's called HR Approved, where I coach people on like how to get attention in this job market, because it is not as easy as it used to be. You got to do a lot of work. You can't just apply. You got to do a lot of work on LinkedIn and follow ups and networking and tailoring your resume and all that good stuff. But I won't bore you with that. I want to talk about Realeyes because this company is fascinating to me. Now, it focuses on measuring human responses with vision AI, and you guys have been doing ad analysis now for over 10 years, and now you've branched out in some other use cases. But what are all the ways that the technology is being applied in the real world?
So as you mentioned, the core business has been around for more than a decade. And just to pause, the company was founded in 2007. So I always kind of joke, early on, waiting for this AI renaissance to catch up because they've been at it for almost 20 years. As you described, the core business for more than a decade is the this ad testing use case. So participating in the online market research ecosystem, acquiring very, very particular audience segments. It's very ad techy, like women with credit scores of 750 who shop at Walmart and drive BMWs. Bring them into an environment hosted by us, expose them to channel specific variations of ads while our proprietary technology is running in the background, classifying their attention and emotion response in very close alignment to their contextual stimuli. So, what they're seeing and experiencing, such that we can deliver insights like for that audience on TikTok on mobile, you should run this very particular. I guess, is TikTok on desktop? I don't know what I said, but
It can be.
okay. So hey, I'm doing the right thing for that audience on this particular channel. Run this very particular version of the ad, like the red car, the female hero, the third call to action. But on YouTube, run this other version. So that's like the core way that we've been out in the world for a very long time. I joined to lead a platform play, and the thesis of the platform is no longer are you only able to engage with our market leading models through this managed service ad testing business. Instead, I own a library of very easy to use plug and play capabilities such that you can run our market leading models in real time on the client side, on the edge, inside of hardware. Truly anything is possible, such that you can now measure not just attention and emotion, but we recently expanded into concepts of identity. But you can do that literally anywhere, any integration you can pretty much imagine is possible, and you can solve problems that are never possible before. So one example that really makes this come to life is at CES in January, LG Electronics featured one of my SDKs in their software defined vehicle demo on the floor at CES, where you could sit in this kind of a mock-up of a car. It wasn't a complete car, but you could drive while there's a screen giving you a presentation of a synthetic sort of driving experience. And while you're driving, there's various telemetry looking at you and measuring you. And one of them was them using our tech to measure your emotional response to that drive. And that led to an inbound a month later from a company in Europe who makes infotainment systems for cars saying, hey, I saw what you did there. I would love to explore using your tech in my cars too. So not just attention and emotion, but also the car can now use my face verification tech to recognize people and be like, oh, that's Blake driving again. I know what he likes. Let me curate experiences for him. Blake was surprised during that drive. That's probably a meaningful moment where he might not be as calm and collected. Let me turn on music I know is calming for him. Like this is kind of where all that's going. And our technology is very much at the kind of a seat at the table for being able to create curated experiences at digital scale anywhere kind of in front of human consciousness, whether it's a mobile device, whether it's a kiosk, a smart screen, your car, your television, truly anything's possible.
And you were telling me with that ad testing research data that you guys collected for over 10 years, that's kind of the secret sauce because you guys have one of the only attention and emotion response data sources that's already compliant with a lot of all the country regulations and such that other competitors just have no access to, right?
You're on the right path. I'll frame it a little differently. It's kind of this subtle kung fu or judo move that's unfolded in slow motion for like the past decade. I don't know if the founders had this intentionality while it started, but to your point, it set us up in a very unique position. The whole premise is we've been running that ad testing business globally. Over this period of time, we've amassed a sort of war chest of recordings of audience members approaching like 18 million total videos from several million users across 93 countries. But what's more is we have GDPR compliant consent on all of those videos, giving us rights to test and train models on them. And in this kind of modern AI renaissance we're in, the big Achilles heel you'll find is not having appropriate data provenance for what data you're using to test and train. And that's especially relevant, like we saw it with the former CTO of OpenAI, March of last year. I'll never forget that interview where they had just released Sora, their video model. And there was a pretty challenging interview with that CTO saying, so where'd you get the training data for that? Is it public and private data sets? And she's like, yeah, I think there's public in there. I don't know. Say, oh, what about YouTube? Did you get it from YouTube? She's like, maybe. Kind of like, I couldn't believe, as a side note, they hadn't like primed her for these sorts of challenging interviews. She was kind of, I don't know, maybe. It's like, well, if you did you have the rights to do that? I'm not sure. I'll have to, like, no, she was lying. They stole the data and they knew it, which is a huge problem. And there's kind of this legal issue catching up to all of that. Whereas we right now are sitting pretty, in a weird way to say that, with this giant war chest where we have the GDPR compliant consent. And that has, or we were validated uniquely with that, giving us this very unique, responsible AI story that no one else has, unmatched data set and unmatched data provenance. And that's already won us opportunities with like the kind of the Mangs of the world, if that's the right acronym now. So like the world's top companies are now using us because we have this data provenance that for face models that puts them on good footing with international regulators. So they're now, I'm doing business with them. They're now able to tell international regulators, yes, we're using biometrics, but it's not us. It's this European company. They're on the leading edge of GDPR compliance. And in fact, let me show you this fairness report. We put them through the gauntlet of a new responsible AI demographic fairness testing protocol. And in that, they showed fairness across darker skin tones that's never been publicly demonstrated before. And that's a true story of how we got into production with one of the largest companies on earth. And that story resonates everywhere where I go because no one else has that.
That's huge, man. And there's like so many use cases that you can think of for this technology. It's insane. There's so many, you probably can't even begin to like approach them all.
That is the trying to think of a good analogy for that one. That is
like how do you prioritize?
Yeah, this is a double-edged sword. So right when I joined, 2.5 years ago, I was looking at the list of the stuff they'd already explored, and I had my own ideas. And you can very easily make a gigantic list that's ridiculous in like 10 minutes. You could totally imagine that. Yeah, you can totally imagine everything. So it's the whole game of, it's not the typical game of innovation where I'm prioritizing based on, like, is that in line with my strategic objectives for the company? Okay, it is. How hard would that be? All right, not too hard. What do I think I'd get? Well, there's a whole market there. If I can capitalize on this and make sort of reusable parts, I could capitalize. Yeah. And yes, you have an exhaustive list of, yep, that applies, checks the boxes on all of them. Then the hardest part is this is like a complete new subject matter for these markets. They don't like the art of the possible. They've never heard game developers that I was talking to. I've never heard, oh, I could have attention and emotion and demographics in my game. I could know that the person playing is a 44-year-old male right now, and he's frustrated. And this is the third time he's tried to defeat the boss level. My turn model is telling me that people with this segmentation, when they exhibit this sort of telemetry, it's very likely they're going to quit and not come back. So it would behoove me in my game in the moment to like throw that guy a bone, let him get past that, put him on a different path so that I can extract more value from him over time. Like I would tell that story and their brains would melt. They'd be like, oh my God, I can do that? That's so exciting. And then get caught up in how that's not simple to do. That's like a lot of work. So being able to go through that list in a strategic way, and this is the motion of the founders, this is what you have to do, explore them, find some kernel of validation, and then be like, cool, I'm going to double down on that one. These seem interesting, but I didn't find the same signal I found there. So I'm going to go deeper on that one. And that's exactly what I've been doing for 2.5 years. And just trying to find pattern matching, find where, oh, this is true in this industry. Bet it's true here. Can I tell that same story? Wow, I can tell that same story. That works. And that's what I'm doing now, like every day.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish Fortnite had Realeyes so, they could see how upset I am whenever I, get knocked too quickly when I enter a battle royale, right? They should have Realeyes and say, like, hey, he's pretty frustrated. Maybe we should downgrade him to some easier lobbies. And, it's funny because I just signed up to go to Unreal Fest in Orlando. It's June 2nd through the 5th. You should come to that because it's like the Unreal Engine, and I'm sure you could pitch quite a few people on Realize while you're there. So yeah, why don't you go ahead and book a ticket, man? Come with us.
Say that's in Miami. Where's that one?
It's in Orlando.
Florida in the summer. It's a good place to be. That's awesome.
There's worse places to go.
Yeah, it's funny. There are so many gaming use cases, and I am not a gamer. Even more funny, when I moved here to this market from California like 13 years ago, we obviously have Epic Games here, and they have very cool product roles listed all the time. But when you go to their application, it's like, so describe that you're a hardcore gamer. I'm like, well,
Right. Yeah.
we specialize, and that's the interesting thing too with hiring. Do you have to be an industry specialist, or can you just be like, I'm really good at learning?
Right.
In that case, they're like, nope, you must be a hardcore gamer to work here. But that aside, I've been exploring so many use cases for gaming where when I tell these stories, again, people's brains kind of melt, like that's so exciting, but we're not there yet. So for example, NPCs, they don't have to be one size fits all. They could know like Blake's like really pissed right now, and it could know your demographics, can know all this interesting stuff about you and speak to you differently than it does to me or than it does to a child or whatever.
Oh, wow.
For streaming, this idea of, and I've never even been on Twitch, which is funny, but I'm going to pretend I have. So imagine we're on Twitch. You're like the very popular gamer. You could expose to your audience your attention and emotion response, and even have like a polygon, like face markers of the face in the corner while I'm watching you, watching the game screen, and be able to say like, oh my God, Blake's like not smiling. He's always smiling when he's doing well. I guess he's like really, this is really challenging him. This is super exciting. Because I know they might expose like their heartbeat and stuff, like other sort of biometrics. So the idea of like what is their face expression signaling as well. But perhaps even more exciting, imagine Twitch did a deal with me so that everyone, the audience on Twitch opts in. I can measure their attention and emotion response. That can tell you as the streamer what moments, what sort of subject matter, what kind of games, what kind of experiences in the games get the highest attention and emotion response, and which ones cause the people to be like, what else is going on?
Next. Yeah.
But then
Scroll on
also,
past.
yeah, also there's all these companies bringing these like progressive ad impressions to streaming of games. And they just apparently, again, I'm not in the audience for this, but apparently they just kind of shoot from the hip and be like, in-stream ad at points that alienate the audience. Well, what if instead
Right.
tune it to a moment of optimal attention engagement and like just find these right moments of everyone's really tied in. Cool. Here's an ad.
Yeah, it's like leaving on the episode of the series on a cliffhanger every single time. HBO's pretty good at that, right? So it's like, man, they're really zoned in right now. But there's a big use case, I feel like, for Realize, just for content creators in general, like for testing out content before you actually publish it, or testing out your tone of voice or your setting or whatever it is, right? What gets the best response from the audience? Like replicate that, mimic that as much as you can in your content. I feel like each creator would pay a ton of money a month for something like that.
Yeah. And we I think in our amazing get to know you hour-and-a-half call last week, I think I mentioned my platform would allow you to build a business like that. So we could definitely team up on that, where the premise could be Like for the ad testing business, for example, we just released a year ago a synthetic product where it uses 10 years of empirical data, where we have this war chest of recordings against very particular audience segments and being able to decompose that into objects, branding, words that were said or seen, colors of things, whatever, such that you can now upload an ad. We decompose it into scenes and then the attributes of what's inside of each scene, and then run that up against our models so we can predict very specifically by audience. This scene's not really going to capture their attention. This scene's great. This scene is okay. And then an overall recommendation. You should put these colors in. You should have words like this. You should have this sort of imagery. And you could totally imagine having the same for content creators. But then where all of this is going to is you shouldn't even have to predict like that kind of latency of, oh, I made this thing form cool. I'll now create a new version. But rather, the latency is going to go to zero, where you're going to have models creating this content on the fly, being able to say Blake as a, I don't know how old you are, Blake as a this age male, his response to this right now, this subject matter, I'm going to unfold a curated experience for him on the fly based on how he's reacting. Scott, similar to Blake, but a little different. He's reacting this way, and I know these things about him. His show is going to go in this direction based on his response, and these ads will unfold in unique ways for each. It's going to get pretty wild. I don't know how you do that with human content creators without creating like an avatar for them and a model behind it, but maybe they'd be into that.
Maybe. Yeah, yeah. So for someone that's just like new to trying to understand what Realeyes is and the technology behind it, I guess like you were telling me there are like 512, I think, attributes that would define someone's face. How does that work?
So in general, I would say you could abstract it, and this would be like my version of how I would describe AI in general, for better or for worse, just for simple conceptualization. The idea that let's say the best way to do something is have humans do it, and for our attention and emotion measurement, that would mean I've recorded a video of someone watching an ad, and frame by frame, moment by moment, I want a human to tell me, do you think they were paying attention? Do you think they looked happy? Do you think they looked sad? Do you think they looked confused? Do you think they looked surprised? Frame by frame, someone annotating that. That's the best way to do it. That obviously doesn't scale. So the premise is, can I create a system where it is trained off of that level of annotation, where frame by frame somebody says, this person, they're paying attention there. They're moderately paying attention. There, they're not paying attention at all. There, they're happy. Here, they're confused, etc. Feed all that into and I'm trivializing this, feed all of that in very hand wavy, feed all that into a model where now based on that, a model can see a face, and in real time, the model can classify, they're surprised, they're paying attention. There's no human there. There's no one even present. They're confused, whatever. It can do all of that. What you were describing is our face verification solution, and we recently released face verification and demographic estimation on age and gender. For face verification, the kind of currency of it is producing a face embedding, where it's a mathematical representation of the image bespoke to our model. And what I'm about to say, my understanding is this sort of archetype of how you approach it is an approach used by most people in this space, where the face embedding is comprised of 512 data points. And those data points are this mathematical expression of the image bespoke to the model. So one model's embedding and another model's embedding would have like the same characteristics, 512 data points, but they were completely different, and not like one model would not tie to another. They're like very unique fingerprints. That is
Interesting.
that is my version of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there too, you're building up, you're testing and training. There, the sort of currency of it is you are trying to test your model for true positive rates of matching. So how accurate is it on matching the right person from separate images? And then false positive rates. How good is it at, how robust is it at not screwing up and having a false positive match?
Wow. Yeah. So I guess like 12 of those attributes are like where things are located on your face, and then the rest of them are just the distances between those things on your face.
My understanding is that it doesn't map like that. It's not like you could say these data points describe the eyebrows or whatever, or these data points describe the distance. My understanding is it's kind of encapsulating the totality of the attributes of the image. My understanding is it's not as simple as, oh, these data points describe like his nose or whatever. It's more so the tapestry chemistry of the data points describes the totality of the image in a mathematical expression.
Well, we're in the attention economy, right? So how do they help advertisers kind of cut through the noise and really connect with the audience? Like, is there like a top 10 things that audiences in general really like or dislike?
We are the ad testing side of the business, and all of the people working on that would be much better equipped to answer your question.
Okay,
To my
okay.
knowledge, I can do a hand wavy high level version of it though. Here too, it feels like the world is catching up to where Realeyes has been for a very long time. The co-founders kind of amongst their kind of ideation for this business almost 20 years ago was this concept of neuromarketing and what is the relationship between an attention and emotional response to the downstream outcomes. Did they buy the product? Did their brand affinity increase or decrease, et cetera? Which ultimately it's like, that's great, but did they buy the product? And now the world has caught up where we went like I used to work in ad tech. So 12 years ago-ish, the zeitgeist was viewability. It's not enough to just say, I showed an ad on the Wall Street Journal. It doesn't matter if it was below the fold and the guy never saw it. So then we say, well, I need to know he scrolled down and the ad was visible. And then it's viewable, and that's good enough. And now we've caught up to, well, viewability doesn't mean anything. Were they paying attention to it? Now we're kind of there and the world's caught up, and that's been really good for us. But now we're also going really deep with some of the top brands on earth with our synthetic data play, but also the being able to truly in data sciencey fashion correlate the attention response to actual increase in sales and a tangible ROI that way. So that's where we're going really deep with very big brands on earth right now.
Very cool. Yeah, like on LinkedIn, you see the impressions, right? You got 60,000 impressions, or your Instagram got, 1,200 views, but then the engagement is what means the most, right? I mean, people click like or commented. Commenting is the biggest one, but there could be like a third metric, which is like emotion response. And that would indicate somebody actually watched it and maybe their eyebrows moved or they zoomed in or they, I guess hovering could be another thing, like time spent, like actually viewing it. And that's also a good metric. So maybe this will be a fourth, but like, was there an emotional response to your thing that you created, right?
Yeah, I guess just various thoughts to share. One that's really hit me on the head over the years working at Realeyes is from the ad testing side of the business and like the data scientists there, where some of them have been working here for several years. So over those several years, deep in the weeds, watching these videos, analyzing them, looking for it's kind of a notion of a partner of mine on a different effort we worked on for a well-being app measuring emotion. We called it the amplitude of expression, like how severe is that smile, whatever, versus your baseline. And apparently the data scientists will tell me a lot of people, when they're consuming content on their phones, it's pretty intuitive. As I say it, we kind of have a dead face. We just sit there like mindlessly scrolling and we don't move our face a lot. So from that point, if I'm on LinkedIn, like in the market research industry where I've been driving pretty crazy innovation the past couple of years with a solution for online fraud, a huge story in that industry just broke out yesterday where the Department of Justice is suing a pretty large research firm for $10 million worth of fraud. And that company had a certification that some of the top brands said, you need that certification to prove that you have good quality. And this company's like, I've got the certification. Turns out that certification is meaningless. A bunch of people knew that, but they'd never had this kind of huge moment. So I'm pretty sure when I and others saw that story on LinkedIn, we probably all went like, yeah. I know I did. I'm pretty sure I opened my mouth like, whoa. I'm pretty sure based on the heat I'm seeing from all the comments, all the shares, all the chatter on it, I'm pretty sure a lot of people probably had a big amplitude of expression from this baseline of, because that would be very powerful to measure
It
that.
would be. Well, you guys have some massive deals brewing with some major tech companies out there. We won't chat about them, but yeah, I mean, big things coming for Vision AI. And maybe you and I will talk about a side business or a spinoff, or maybe something that uses the API from Vision AI. But let's talk about Gen AI for a minute. Like, how do you see that technology impacting the field of vision AI? And like, are there any specific models you guys are using over there?
On the ad testing business for this synthetic system, the R&D team is using just about every model under the sun to augment our telemetry from our computer vision, such that, for example, using other tools to take a video and be able to scene by scene say what objects are on it, what kind of people are on it, what kind of words were said, what kind of words were seen, using tools like that, using tools for insights such that being able to, like, this whole notion of our telemetry can tell you what an audience's response would be, but how do you summarize that? How do you take all this, so kind of all the stuff everyone's working on with these, the notion of agents, the notion of large language models, et cetera. How do I take these kind of kernels of insight and distill it for an audience in a way that's meaningful so a human knows what happened, what to care about, and what to do next. I would argue that's kind of how we're doing it to augment our core competency in the attention and emotion response and the empirical data of how audiences react to different types of content. On my side, the opportunity I've been passionate about for these 2.5 years ties to, well, a few aspects of, sorry to wave my purple pen as I say that, a few aspects of kind of this Gen AI wave we're in. One is reinforcement learning with human feedback. Currently, if you are using one of these models or you're on the development side, you're like a human input into them. Let's say you go to Midjourney or ChatGPT or what have you, and you say, give me a picture of a scary clown. The feedback loop right now tends to be like a thumbs up or a thumbs down. You say like, yeah, that was scary. Or that wasn't scary. What if instead it was measuring your attention and emotion response? Give me an image of a scary clown. Wow, that's a
That one worked.
fucking scared me, man. Yeah, like, that's a different level of dimensionality to round out, like, I don't know, make my system smarter. Yeah, it got a thumbs up, but no, it got like the guy to jump. That's a pretty big deal. Like, that's a good input to the model. Stuff like that. And then interestingly enough, on the front end of it, I mentioned before, like, I've been making waves using this technology for combating online fraud. It generally abstracts the idea it's too easy to be a bot. It's too easy to lie about who you are. Like if you're catfishing someone on a dating app or whatever, it's too easy to have many accounts, get kicked off, come back and have many accounts and not be detected without forcing the user to show a government ID and spend $1 on it, which just doesn't scale across all these platforms where you just, the economics don't make sense. So we've built very disruptive solutions for that problem, going real deep in market research, but it also ties to the annotation platforms that feed into these Gen AI systems. So for example, you're having all these specialized models come to market where I'm building a large language model that is a specialist in biology, for example. To test and train those, you need inputs from real biologists. You can't just have some random dude off the street do it. The incentive you have to pay that guy or girl, whomever they are, to do that specialized biology work is not going to be cheap. And therefore, that means it's going to open up to a lot of fraud. There's a lot of people who are like, oh, you'll pay me $60 for 20, it's probably more than that. You'll pay me $150 to answer biology questions for an hour. I want some of that. I'm going to try to hack my way into it. Or the biology might say, it's kind of like the taxi cabs where I buy a medallion and sure, I'm the only one allowed to drive my taxi, but if I could get my family members driving that taxi 24 hours a day, we'd make a lot of money. So if I'm I'm not saying biologists would do this necessarily, but I got myself vetted. I'm on the platform. I'm approved. Now, why not have my friend take on more of this work for me so that I can make more money? Right now, the controls for that are not there. So that's a play we have. I've tried to energize that a couple of times, but now I think with the advancement of these models and how much annotation has to go into them from very specialized people, where there's going to be more of a honeypot for fraud, that's an area where we have a very unique value proposition.
Yeah, I could see it being a big use case for these, one-way video interviewing platforms or AI interviewing platforms and hiring. And there's a big issue right now with like fake candidates that are taking these interviews and it's like an avatar or just like a fake overlay of a face and somebody else is actually taking the interview. Can Realeyes detect if it's a real person or not?
We are. So one angle we have, so we were able to, the whole reason we got into this identity category 2 years ago, slightly more than that, was an opportunity with one of the world's largest consumer app platforms. They were looking for a face verification model. We threw our hat in the ring, kind of bluffed our way into it, ended up winning their RFI. That was March of 2023. through that relationship, I'm now in like land and expand mode. They've been rolling us out in production, seeing great success. We're kind of in the family now with them. So they
Right.
won't do RFIs anymore. They'll just be like, hey, Realeyes can do this. Through that, we came up with, I mentioned our differentiating data set that we have that no one else in the world has. Through that, we knew that deepfake detection would be valuable to them. We'd already been talking to them about it, and we'd been trying to energize, like, we could solve that for you. We're really good at like this R&D on things that have never been done before with our unmatched responsible AI and data set story. And that led into them saying, yeah, we'd like to hear more about it. So in January, we pitched them on it. And the whole premise is using our unique data set, building this system where we can have kind of a living repository of all these open source deepfake tools, because it's being democratized right now. You can go on Hugging Face and get like the world's best right now. So the idea of building this system that's constantly taking inventory of the latest and greatest deepfake tools, and then continually generating permutations of them, of the artifacts they have off of our data set that no one else has. And then having a model that's constantly being trained on the latest and greatest. So we're always up to date on the temporal and image-based artifacts of these systems, such that we can have an unmatched deepfake detection system that you could put anywhere, so you wouldn't be able to do that. That's one angle. The other angle, I've gotten validation on this. I haven't been able to get deals done yet, but I've talked to 3 of these hiring platforms where they have the same challenge. It's too easy to be a bot. It's too easy to lie about who you are. I call it kind of the goodwill hunting use case, although it's the inverse of that. He had Ben Affleck do the interview to bomb it. Most people aren't going to do that. They're going to say, I want someone smarter than me to do the interview. So right now it's too easy to onboard to these platforms, get vetted somewhat. Like, yeah, I'm a product manager. I have this much experience. Cool. We want to interview you. And then I have my friend who's better at product management do the interview. And then they say, good job. We're going to get you a job. And then I show up to the job. Like, that challenge is very active right now. And they too don't want to pay $1 every time to make you show a government ID. So my solution is very valuable, but I haven't been able to crack that yet.
You'll get there. You'll get there. Maybe they're watching, but hopefully we'll see. But I would definitely go after some of these one-way interview platforms. There's quite a few of them: Spark, Hire View, My Interview, Kerplunk, Interactive EQ. Some of these platforms that already do the one-way interviews, I'm sure they would, if it was reasonably priced, they'd probably want to take advantage of some of the emotion data.
I dropped the ball. I should have written all those down you just said, but I would love
I'll email them to you.
Because that's my whole game too. Being this kind of army of one, it's incumbent on me. Any new vertical, I'm like, okay, LinkedIn, Apollo, whatever. Like, where can I find some numbers to go after? Build up a sample, tell a story, see how many I can get to take a call with me. Yeah.
Yeah, look, give me an affiliate code or like a partnership sales deal, and I'll try to do some sales for you.
Okay.
Let's talk about synthetic data for a minute, because this is like, I guess this could be a way to get around some of the ethical concerns that people might have about their phone looking at them, or their TV looking at them, or their computer looking at them all the time and gauging their emotions. But if you've got the synthetic data that can basically predict all this stuff, right?
Yeah, the challenge in the context of market research, I was just on stage at a sample focused event. So the supply side of the industry and some buyers, but mostly on the supply side. I was at that event a year ago, my first time kind of entering this industry with my solution for fraud and kind of doing all the validation and discovery. And at that event a year ago, I heard people talking about synthetic data, and the theory being in the context of market research, if I've got a collection, like a sample I'm trying to build, and let's say it's 1,000 responses, if after 20% of the collection I'm seeing the signal's kind of holding true, and as I get to 50%, the signal's still holding true, and I get to 80%, the signal hasn't changed, why should I capture the rest of it? Why don't I stop at the 20? And everyone's kind of like, no, yeah, that's smart. That makes sense. It does make sense. But the challenge is that industry is so riddled with fraud. And that's why my product is so powerful and disruptive. By default, what I came out of that event I was at last year, by default, you can assume 30 to 40% of what you get is bad. But people lying about who they are, and suppliers aren't fixing the problem. They pretend, they kind of dance around like, oh yeah, I've got quality, trust me. And then the buyers end up holding this trash bag being like, what did you sell me? And that's the equilibrium right now. So I quickly, hurrying that story, oh yeah, synthetic data. I was like, well, it's not all created equal. You have to be very sure that the seed data you use to create that synthetic data set is good. And we'd been dealing with that at Realeyes for since the beginning. A lot of our that ad testing business, for example, we do AI data collection as a service. We help some of the biggest companies on earth build avatars, for example, using a competency that we do on building face models through the online market research. We'd had a front row seat to what goes wrong when bad data gets into AI models. So we knew, like, my spidey sense is going off, like, it's not that easy. You have to be sure of the hygiene of what you're putting into your system to make the synthetic data. So I gave a presentation on that at this event, where the whole premise was you can't just make synthetic data. You have to make sure quality is controlled in your seed data. And I showed a case study, real ad testing data from our business, where for each respondent, I had a quality assessment using the products I launched. So acceptable means you're a human, you're unique, you haven't done it before, and you are generally who you say you are demographically. Red is fraud, you're a bot, you're a duplicate, you're lying about who you are. And then gray is everyone. So anyone who wanted to participate, acceptable, fraud, and people who said, I don't want to get verified, I'm not comfortable with that. That's the gray bucket. And the idea that the signals are so different between them. Your typical motion would be, well, I did the data collection, I'm going to use the gray to make my synthetic set. And the gray is not at all the story you get from the green, but you wouldn't know that. So essentially,
Right.
I put this data set under an X-ray and showed this conference it's not all created equally. The signal from the green is completely different from the signal from the red, and the signal from the gray dilutes all of that. It's an even a different story. So you can't do that. And by the way, you should buy my solution because it's really hard to do this. Yeah. So yeah, it's this. That's the problem. Realize has been living this for a long time, and now everyone's catching up. So we're happy to tell the story. You can't just make synthetic data; it has to be high quality.
Wow. Yeah, I never even thought of that. That's insane, man. You guys are on a whole nother frontier over there.
Trying to help people climb up with us.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to see where all this is going to go, man. And I'm glad to have met you. I'll let you go here in a minute. Just want to ask a few, just fun personal questions here. What's your favorite movie?
So I was a film major in college, so it might be, God, I don't think I could pick a favorite. It'll be some nerdy ones and some cool ones. So I think The Dark Knight is probably one of the most badass films I've ever seen. I would say the two Dunes that came out, Dune and Dune 2, those are among the best things I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah, they were good.
Going more old school, I would say like Rashomon, if you've ever heard of that, by a famous Japanese director, Akira Kurosawa. I'll go into like French New Wave, like Breathless from the 60s. I'm kind of all over the place. So I can't really answer your question with one.
Yeah, I have trouble with that one too. But I like the multiple options. That's good too. Who's your favorite superhero? Is it Batman?
That's a good choice. I don't know if I have one. Batman's cool. Why not? Because
Yeah. Well, you said
he's
Dark Knight.
accessible. He's accessible. He's not a genetic freak. He's just really clever and rich.
Yeah. That's a good one. All right. Who's your favorite band?
Can't answer. Maybe I'll just show your audience my room just for context. So
Okay. Yeah.
in addition to being a technologist, I'm also a professional musician. Oh my God, I can't keep that even. So I'm like 30 years into playing drums, 20 years of studying drums seriously. Started piano at 4. So I'm like very deep in that. I can't answer that. But I would say movies. I would say the career of Miles Davis. My favorite drummer, Tony Williams. Metal bands like Mastodon, Metallica, Megadeth, jazz funk groups, Snarky Puppy. Yeah, I can't answer that.
That's a wide range there. I love it. Eclectic. What AI are you teamed up with? Are you teamed up with ChatGPT or do you have another favorite?
I'm all in on Claude.
Claude.
Yeah, and I know everyone's saying come back to ChatGPT. I haven't touched it this year. It's been crazy. I was on a call with this really interesting thought leader that I've been following for a while. He's all about long form content creation, and he's been using Claude to do it to be more efficient. I got on a call with him. The thesis of the call was he wanted me to pay him like $2,000 for a personal coaching session on how to use AI systems. And I was like, that's pretty rich, man. But he said, you take nothing from this call. I think you should be using Claude. That's the takeaway. That was like November. And I was like, well, that's a good nudge. So I'll try it out. And I haven't looked back. My favorite example of using Claude It's this kind of this perspective of AI to help you become this super IC, like someone who can do more than a single person ever could have before, allowing you to get into subjects you've never done before. So this market research play we've been working on, we took the story to the supply side. Hey, fraud's really bad out there. Some of it's bad on your platform. Look at the measurements I have, but hey, don't worry. I've got this amazing solution, unmatched scalability, unmatched economics. It unlocks all this strategic value for you. You should do this. They'd be like, well, why should I be the first mover? So complacency and misaligned incentives for them to solve the problem. So now we're bringing that over to the supply side, the top brands, top buyers. Like, yo, come with us on this industry play where you can invest, you can fund this for the industry, demand it as a procurement standard, and get money back as an investor. We came up with that story Q4 of last year. Last quarter, I was hit up by one of our advisors, like, hey, Scott, we've got an opportunity. The archetype I'm about to describe sounds cliche, but it's real. We have an opportunity with a Chinese billionaire to invest in this. I need you to make an IM for me. And I'm like, what's an IM, Dan? An investment memorandum. Oh, sure. What's an investment memorandum? And he tells me, and I'm like, can you share examples of some you like? So he does. And I get with Claude and I upload those and I say, hey, Claude, good news. You're going to help me make an investment memorandum. Here's examples of some that are really good. Here's what I want to cover. And we did. And the output I gave to my creative director, and he made this really flashy one pager that kicked ass. That got the attention of the Chinese billionaire. I heard back from Dan. He said, yeah, this guy wants to take a meeting with us. Good job. Now I need you to make a pitch deck. And I'm like, okay, can you send examples of pitch decks you like? And he does. And I'm like, hey, Claude, good news, picking up on the same thread. We got the meeting. Now we're going to make a pitch deck. Help me blow up these concepts into something that looks like a tangible plan that makes sense. So we did. And it was like 30 pages of making up all this stuff. Like, oh, here's the phases we see. And here's the operational model. Like, okay, whatever. That one, he's moving forward with us. Never been able to do anything like that. And I'm doing that kind of stuff all day long now. I'm using like Claude's my wingman communication in these sales calls and emails that I've never done before with like enterprise customers, billion-dollar companies. What's an elegant way to say this where subtly I want them to think about this? And this is really what I want to get out of it, but I don't want to say it that way. How about this, Scott? Like, that's pretty good. Here's my version. Yeah, your version's good. You should do that. Awesome. Like, I'm doing that all day long, and it's amazing.
That's awesome. Yeah, I use Gemini a lot, but I hear Claude is definitely one of the best ones that are tied into some of these coding platforms. Like, it has the best code. Every developer is like, oh, yeah, I'm using this in Claude. So, yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong with it. So maybe I should try to tinker with it more often. But yeah, man, all those stories you told right there, good Lord, like Deloitte and KPMG and Accenture, they just lost like 10,000 consultants right there.
It's even crazy. So last spring, like time is so fluid right now, but I think it was last April, there was a release from ChatGPT. And pretty quickly on LinkedIn, you started seeing all these people saying, I use ChatGPT to analyze this Excel file. And when I was seeing that output, I was like, well, that was 7 years of my career.
Right.
An analyst being told, hey, Scott, this is chaotic data. Tell me what's inside of it. Tell me the story on it and help me figure out what to do with it. Like that was 7 years of my life. And you don't need that person anymore. And that was even a year and change ago. It was pretty clear. It wasn't great, but it's like, well, you're not going to need that person. You're going to need less engineers. You're going to need less people who corral information and tell you what it means. Now you're going to need more people who have insight and ideas that no one else has, who can direct that stuff as they would have directed humans. Humans you don't need anymore. So that's kind of where this is all going.
I'm worried about anybody in the white collar profession that has a title, the word analyst in their title. Like that's big at risk right there, man. I don't know what you pivot to, but yeah, somebody shared an image on LinkedIn. It was like a future org chart. It was just like executives with like AIs under them, and that's it. You know, you get the idea generation and then a bunch of bots working for them. Maybe that is the future. I don't know. We'll see, man. I hope not.
Everyone's kind of super hand wavy on it, but if you just take like where we're at with the good, the bad, and the ugly, where generally see all these kind of vectors about agents and what are they doing. They're all kind of going in this, say they're all going in that direction, where that direction could be what you said, like your entire, if we say agents are kind of these little personalities you imbue with a task and a scope, and they can start to work together and be like, you're the guy who finds interesting insights in data, you're the guy who takes those insights and summarizes them, you're the
Right.
who puts all of this in a communication aligned with our strategy, you're the guy who feeds this into an avatar who then talks about this with our CEO. It's like, yeah, you're not going to need people. You're going to start just assigning agent people, and that's already happening.
Right.
People are now
It is.
saying, this is Sally. She like sits in on your calls and stuff. This is Steve. He like watches how you use your email. Like, it's already happening.
It is. It is. Another question here. If you won the lottery tomorrow for $500 million, what would you do?
I think I'd still be doing the same stuff, but I wouldn't necessarily have a full-time job with it. I would probably, I do aspire to be more of a, say, fractional in general, whether it's technology, music, whatever, just being able to do more and not have to commit all into any of them. So I would imagine that could set me up for that, and also shift into being more of an investor rather than the kind of doer. So ultimately, I do see myself kind of becoming this advisor, fractional leader, and also still a leader myself. And what you just described would make that very easy.
It sure would.
Let's do it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, last thing, you got any questions for me?
How do you keep your kind of positive vibe? You got like a very bubbly sense. Are you always like that?
Oh God, you'd have to ask my kids and my wife that.
Same answer
Yeah,
for me.
I try. I try. I don't know, man. I'm just rolling with it. The market's kind of bad right now. If I just focused on all the, how weak my desk is, and a lot of people coming at me. They're constantly laid off. So I don't know. Just try not to let it get to me, man. I pray that God's going to lead me down the right path, and everything's going to work out. So just try to believe in that. And yeah, try to, like you said, try to be present. And if you dwell on negative stuff, you're just going to get that in return. So why not just try to focus on the positive, right? Glass half
Yeah,
full.
that's exactly right. I love your answer. I came up with this little term on a call a while ago, like a year ago, with somebody sharing my belief system. And I said it in a way exactly what you said, but I said, the vibe you keep is the vibe you reap.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah, what you think about and say, you attract. So, hey, is there anything else you want to try to promote, or let's just say, how can people find you?
LinkedIn, I am Scott Jeezy, Scott Jeezy. Instagram is the same deal, Scott Jeezy.
All right.
On Instagram, I share much of my creative endeavors. So drums, singing, piano, random observations. LinkedIn is sharing a lot of content about AI, but also sharing my own thoughts about things and stuff I'm up to. That's probably the good ones. Yeah.
Good deal. Good deal. Well, I'm looking forward to staying connected with you, and check out Unreal Fest. It'd be cool to have you there. And yeah, let's chat again soon. I really want to share some more ideas with you.
I look forward to it. Thanks again for having me.
You're very welcome. You've been an awesome guest, man. Thanks for coming on. And yeah, may the force be with you, sir.
Right on. I knew there'd be a Star Wars bow tied around.